In 1923, Negroes numbered less than 2% of our city's population. By 1943, that number had grown to 9%, with Negroes in attendance at all but 2 of our city's 20 public schools. Now, blacks make up more than 19% of our city's population. Actually, this figure should read 19.5%. And 43% of our city's 35 public schools do not have a single black student enrolled, while 94% of all the black elementary and junior high students attend just 6 schools. Now, these figures point out a critical problem of growing segregation within our school districts. And it's time for this school board to take action to counteract this increasing problem of segregation. My staff and I have prepared a trial desegregation plan. This trial desegregation plan calls for the pairing of 2 elementary schools in a manner designed to correct racial imbalance. The schools involved would be Magruder Elementary School, which is 100% white, and Lincoln Elementary School, which is 80% black. Under this plan, we propose taking all of the kindergarten through 3rd grade students from both the Lincoln Elementary District and the Magruder Elementary District and putting them into the Magruder School. And all of the 4th through 6th grade students from both of these districts and putting them into the Lincoln School. This will mean that all kindergarten through 3rd grade students living within the Lincoln District will be bused to Magruder, and all 4th through 6th grade students living in the Magruder District will be bused to Lincoln. This pairing will result in 34% blacks in Magruder and 38% blacks in Lincoln, which is a much more satisfactory racial balance than we have now. The cost of this busing project will be $70,000 for the school year. I want to point out to you now that this trial plan that I am proposing is on a strictly voluntary basis. It hasn't been ordered by the courts, but I do feel strongly that something should be done now to counteract this growing problem of de facto segregation. Therefore, it is my recommendation to you that this project be adopted as a test to determine the feasibility of a citywide plan.
Thank you, Superintendent Wilson. This plan will undoubtedly arouse considerable controversy. I think it'd be wise to hold a citywide meeting to get reactions before we act on it. How do all of you feel about this?
Right.
Yeah, I think so.
Let's set a date for a public meeting in approximately 10 days. I think that'll give us enough time to get some publicity out on the meeting. I'll try to get Memorial Auditorium for the date.
Quiet on set, coming out in 30 seconds. 20 seconds. Stand by audio, stand by, Telecini.
Stand by, 10 seconds.
5 seconds. Cue talent.
Good evening, everyone. This is Bob Charles, your host on Issues, the program that asks the questions that you and the community are going to have to
Okay,
answer.
fade to camera 1.
No issue facing our city today arouses such controversy as school busing. Busing to do away with de facto segregation. Segregation that exists in fact. What has been proposed is modest enough, but opponents of the plan see it as a break in the dam, a break that will widen until the whole flood of massive busing programs pours through. What exactly is involved? A trial busing plan pairing 2 elementary schools and 2 neighborhoods, both on the west side of the city. 2 neighborhoods next to each other, but divided by a freeway, and separated by far more than concrete. Magruder School serves the Live Oaks area, a neighborhood of expensive homes, boutiques, and the elementary school itself a modern, handsome facility. Lincoln School is on the other side of the freeway and serves a neighborhood of small homes, a deteriorating business area, and what might be called tenements. Lincoln is an old school, some say hopelessly overcrowded. And there is one other difference between the 2 neighborhoods. Live Oaks is almost completely white, while the area served by the Lincoln School is nearly all black. And this racial composition is reflected in the two schools. The trial plan proposes busing white children, grades 4 through 6, from Magruder School to Lincoln, and black children, kindergarten through 3rd grade, from Lincoln to Magruder. In this way, racial balance would be achieved. This plan was the subject of a public meeting last night at Memorial Auditorium. The meeting was conducted by the chairman of the school board, Mr. Alan Johnstone.
The meeting will please come to order. We have called this open meeting to get your reaction to a proposal made by our superintendent of schools, Mr. Wilson, to counteract the growing segregation problem in our city. Briefly, this trial busing plan would involve 2 elementary schools, one 100% white and the other 80% black. Its aim is to correct this racial imbalance. The cost of the project would be approximately $70,000 a year, with most of this going into busing. Now, would each person who wishes to speak come forward to the microphone, state his name and address, and address his remarks to the board? And will the audience please refrain from any outbursts and emotionalism so that each person has a chance to express himself?
Needless to say, there were some strong opinions expressed at the meeting.
I didn't move into this neighborhood and buy a home in order to have my children go to school with these people.
As far as I'm concerned, people who are opposed to integration through plans like these are no better than fascists.
Let's listen at length to 4 of the speakers, each of whom illuminated the problem of busing in a different way. Listen and make up your mind.
My name is Charles Randall, and my home is at 233 West 9th Avenue. I think we're all aware of the increase in the number of black people in our city over the years. And unless we're completely indifferent or just plain blind, we're also aware of the housing patterns that these blacks are being forced into. We're witnessing the growth of inner city ghettos in our city caused by discriminatory housing practices. And one of the disastrous results of this ghettoizing is the rise of a school system which is, in fact, segregated. Now, this is bad, not only for the black people, but for the whites, for my own children, who end up being almost totally insulated from other races. Our country promises equal educational opportunity for all people, and I think that promise is worth keeping. But it is evident that our black children are not given this equal opportunity. Achievement scores are useful as indicators, and a comparison of the scores of the 2 schools in question shows that the predominantly black Lincoln School has a significantly lower achievement level. Now, this pattern is repeated throughout the United States, wherever segregation exists. The McCone Report on Violence in the City has this to say about the educational impact of segregation. What has depressed and stunned us most of all is the dull, devastating spiral of failure that awaits the disadvantaged child in the urban core. His home life all too often fails to give him the incentive and the elementary experience with words and ideas which prepares most children for school. Unprepared and unready, he may not learn to read or write at all. And because he shares this problem with 30 or more in the same classroom, even the efforts of the most dedicated teachers are unavailing. Age, not achievement, passes him on to higher grades. I don't think we can change these patterns just by spending a little more money on all-black schools. It is vitally important that the children from a disadvantaged background share the classrooms and compete with children who have higher educational achievements. Now, much of our recent legislation has been designed to do away with de jure or legal segregation as it existed in the South. But what about neighborhood or de facto segregation as it exists now in our city? Is de facto segregation less of an evil than de jure segregation? Aren't they equally bad? In the basic decision that required an end to de jure segregation, the case of Brown versus the Board of Education, Chief Justice Earl Warren stated, "To separate Negroes from others of similar qualifications solely because of their race generates a feeling of inferiority as to their status in the community that may affect their hearts and minds in a way unlikely to be undone." I say this is true, no matter what the basis of segregation, and that adopting this busing program is the least we can do to start along the road to total integration. Thank you.
My name is Martha Ann Kennison, and I live at 629 Wellman Drive. I wish to state that I am completely opposed to this plan. In fact, I'm opposed to any plan that would waste large amounts of money and destroy the neighborhood school. You know, when people are looking for a new home, just what motivates them to move into certain neighborhoods? Well, let me assure you, if they have children, the main consideration is the schools. They check out the schools, and only if they're satisfied with them do they move in. Well, these people don't want their children sent to another school in another part of town. In the Supreme Court case of Plessy versus Ferguson, Justice Harlan stated, "The Constitution must be colorblind and neither knows nor tolerates differences between citizens." Now, in opposing this plan, I am not asking children to be assigned to schools because of their races. It is the people who are pushing this bus plan who are doing that. They are the ones who are not colorblind. Now let's take a look at what this plan involves. It will take the children from my neighborhood, that's 4th through 6th grade, one of which is my own child, and force them to ride a bus to another part of town. Now, the bus ride will be 20 minutes each way for my own child. That's 40 minutes a day. And twice a day, my child will pass right by our neighborhood school, a school which is within walking distance of our house. Now, in most cases, these children will have to attend schools where the levels of achievement are markedly lower than the schools they've been attending. So what will happen to the academic level of these students who are forced into this busing situation? They'll have to be held back. Well, why should my child or yours be made to suffer for a situation and a problem they had nothing whatsoever to do with? Now, another reason for preserving the neighborhood school is that children will have a chance to go to school with their own friends. You take a child and bus them to another part of town, and certainly they'll make new friends. But friends who are inaccessible to them after school and on weekends because of the distances involved. No matter how you look at it, busing is irrational and a waste of money. Well, I say let's put this money into the schools where it belongs and not into busing. Since some of our schools seem to be having problems, well, then let's give them more teachers and give them more books and better classrooms and special projects, and forget about the buses and all the wasted time that our children will be spending on them. Now, I might point out in conclusion that our school board is elected. And if this board adopts a plan which is contrary to the wishes of the majority of the voters, then these same voters have a right to recall this school board and put in men and women who are more responsive to the needs of this community.
My name is Chester Jennings. I live at 8342 Clinton Street. You know, busing's not new. When I was a boy down south, I was bused right by a school a half mile from my house, and then on to another school 4 miles away, an all-black school, because that was the law down there. Now, I didn't hear any talk about what it cost to bus me, nor did I hear any complaints that I was passing up a perfectly good school on my way to that all-black school, or any laments on all the time I was wasting on that bus. But when the shoe is on the other foot, and we talk about using buses for desegregation, why then do we start hearing all this talk about the cost and the time and the integrity of the neighborhood school? Down where I went to school, the schools were supposed to be separate but equal. I'll attest to the first part. Separate they were, but equal they were not. But since only blacks were affected by this inequality, no one seemed to care. Now, I don't think it's been very different up here. The school in my neighborhood has had problems. But when some of us went to the Board of Education to tell them about the crowded conditions and the toilets that didn't work, we were told that there was no money. But as soon as there was, they would look into our problem. I have just been told that there is money, but instead of using it for busing, we should use it to fix our schools. But tell me, why wasn't this money made available a long time ago? My guess is that money can only be found when the structure of segregation is threatened. If you defeat this plan, the money will vanish again. On the other hand, I think if we spend the money on buses and get enough white kids from the respectable neighborhoods into the schools where they too are going to be inconvenienced, then we will find money for busing and fix it. The lady who just spoke said something I think is true. She said one of the main reasons people pick their neighborhood is because of the schools. And if we allow the schools to remain mostly white or mostly black, then people are going to continue to pick their neighborhoods because of the makeup of the schools. The situation is going to get worse and worse until both schools and neighborhoods will be all white or all black. Segregated schools make segregated neighborhoods. If we really want an integrated neighborhood, we have to start with integrated schools. Then we can achieve equal opportunity in housing and jobs. Now, I urge the school board to back this plan. I only wish it went further, but at least it is a start.
My name is Joe Jackson, and I reside at 420 J Street. As a concerned member of the black community, I'm opposed to this school busing plan. Why? Because the salvation of blacks will not be busing, but pride. Pride in black backgrounds and accomplishments. Studies have shown that low achievement comes more from low self-image than from inadequate schools. And how can this self-image ever be improved if our only cure is to bus black children out of their neighborhoods, or at least ensure that they're a racial minority, even in their local schools? How does this differ from telling us that we must become like whites to get ahead, that being black isn't good enough, that we must forget black traditions and heritage? Look at how this plan works. In both schools, blacks will be in the minority. It is the youngest blacks, the most impressionable and vulnerable, who'll be bused. Why not the younger whites? Why not a white minority in one of the schools? Can it be that even liberal whites want nothing to do with schools that reflect essentially black viewpoints? A National Committee of Negro churchmen stated a few years ago, without the capacity to participate with power, that is, to have some organized political and economic strength to really influence people with whom one interacts, then integration is not meaningful. What blacks need is a strong sense of community. But plans like this one will break down black pride along with the black neighborhood and will keep blacks from ever becoming an effective, cohesive political force. These plans tend to do away with the worthwhile and distinctive elements of black culture and ensure a faceless uniformity in which all ethnic differences are obliterated. We must hold on to the school that reflects the racial composition of the neighborhood. And this school should be strengthened with more teachers, better and more experienced teachers who will accept the assignment as a challenge and not as a punishment. It must be strengthened with programs in black studies, including black history and black culture, Studies that will not only enrich knowledge, but will instill a sense of pride, self-respect, and dignity. This proposed plan for school busing will only hinder the meaningful education of our young blacks and should therefore be rejected. Thank you.
This issue is not a simple one. The cost and inconvenience of busing must be weighed against the evils of segregation. People from minority backgrounds don't do as well in school as the white majority. But there are those who feel that integration is not the answer to this particular problem, that integration will submerge ethnic uniqueness, deprive blacks of identity, and lose them the chance of becoming a strong economic and political force. But there are those who feel that the black schools must be broken up, that black children will only receive an equal education when they are in the same classroom with children of higher educational achievement, that no immediate cost is too great to pay to avoid the eventual disasters that will overtake our cities if we continue two separate societies, one black and disadvantaged, one white and affluent.
I would like to thank everyone here for attending the meeting. The board has three choices: to reject the busing plan, to accept it, or to modify it. The issue is a complex one, and so I will give the members of the board time to consider, and we will take a vote next week at our regular board meeting. Thank you. The meeting is adjourned.
How would you decide this issue?